Hello, welcome to this Fotospeed video with me, Tim Jones. Today we are going to be talking about toning images, but also using paper as an editing tool as well. Now, in other videos when I've talked about what differences paper makes to your image, and when I'm comparing papers and looking at the different kind of impacts of different finishes of paper, you may have heard me talk about how paper can change the tone of an image and the feel of an image. Not so much talking about like contrast and tone and highlights and shadows and things, but we're talking about the overall feel of the image. And that is what we're going to be looking at today. Before we dive into any of that though, a little bit of housekeeping as always. Please don't forget to subscribe to the Fotospeed YouTube channel. And also, please don't forget to sign up to the Fotospeed newsletter on photospeed.com. There's a link in the description below for you as well. And also, don't forget to download the Fotospeed Art of Printing, the free ebook from us here at Fotospeed. It covers everything from turning on your printer to framing, mounting, and everything to do with printing in between. So give that a download. Okay, housekeeping out of the way. Let's look at how we can use paper as an expansion to our editing process. I've got lots of prints on the table here. I've got 3 different images, 2 black and whites and a colour as well. Now, I've used like portrait images in black and white as the main images because I can see this happening a bit more in the portraits, because there's a lot more emotion in people, I suppose, than there are possibly in landscapes. I know landscape photographers would argue profusely about that. However, for me, there's a lot more emotion and easier to describe, I suppose, for me, because I like taking people and things like that. But in landscape, it will create a different mood. It could create a dreamlike effect and things like that. But I'll talk about all that in a minute. So let's start at the beginning though. Now, when we're editing, we'll probably use programs like Photoshop and Lightroom to edit our pictures. But those programs are, well, I always say in my talks and things that that's almost like editing with a hammer, and you're smashing the image into submission basically, because you're moving those sliders, and so you're moving those sliders and you're getting very immediate effects. When you move the contrast slider, it happens very quickly. You can move that and you get an immediate result, and it usually goes way too far and you have to kind of bring it back a little bit. Now, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. However, sometimes it can be very hard to kind of get a very subtle effect on the image. How do we bring an image down? If you're trying to convey an emotion and you're trying to look at something a little bit more conceptually perhaps, how can we convey an emotion with these sliders and with our editing process? So we can turn like a portrait like this one here, I've got here, and I've printed it on a few different papers here. So I've got the smooth cotton, the platinum baryta and the matte baryta here. Let me just pop those out of the way. Now, each one of them changes the tone very slightly, and it also affects how the man in the picture is portrayed. This is very personal and can be argued either way. So for me, let me put the baryta in the middle here. So for me, the one on the baryta is kind of the semi-gloss type of paper. It's because of the baryta content, it's going to give me those nice punchy blacks and an overall tone that is very, very nice. And it's going to hold contrast really well. It's probably going to be the closest it's going to match my screen because of that. If I say look at the matte baryta here, because it's a little bit softer, we haven't got these really deep silky blacks. On matte papers, you still get a black, but it's slightly different. It's softened in tone. It's still sharp, it still looks great, but there's a certain tonal element and feeling you get from a matte print that's different from, say, a baryta print or semi-gloss print, and that is what's happening. Now, the matte baryta will hold a little bit more of this kind of feeling that's in the platinum baryta a little bit more because of its baryta content, and it prints absolutely wonderfully. Whereas something like the smooth cotton here, because it's 100% cotton, it will just kind of bring down, if I could pop these two together, you'll see there's a bit more contrast and tone held in the matte brighter rather than the smooth cotton. However, it still does have the effect of softening the image a little bit. So it brings down that confrontational feeling a little bit more. Whereas the smooth cotton, it brings down that confrontation, but almost goes the other way into a little bit more vulnerable perhaps. And that is what paper can do for you. Now, it's not so much there to improve shadows, contrast, kind of vibrancy and things like that, which it can do. I mean, a semi-gloss paper is going to have a lot more of that than a matte paper just because of the nature and their makeup. However, if you want to have a feeling about a picture or you're trying to recreate the emotion of the day, then you could change it very simply. You don't have to do anything in the computer. All these prints were printed on the P900 from Epson and printed with the black and white mode. And all I did was print 3 copies with Velvet Fine Art for the matte and semi-gloss. I wanted to use the photo black. Didn't do anything to the pictures. Didn't move any sliders, absolutely anything. It's just a stock image I downloaded as well. All I've done is printed 3 copies of it, and it has changed how the mood feels. Let me have a look at some landscapes though and some colour, because this is also true when you do shoot these pictures. So let me just bring these across. I've used the same papers here. So I've got Platinum Brighter in the middle, really nice and punchy, and got some lovely detail down the bottom here in the actual kind of landscape. Bit of an odd landscape actually, because it's in portrait. I didn't think about that until I put them on the table, to be honest, so please forgive me. However, it has fitted on the table quite nicely. So we'll leave it there though. I've also got the matte brighter here. Wonderful again. It's produced some really nice detail, the colour. There is a slight change in the sky, the colour at the top here. And there's a certain drop off a little bit in contrast perhaps. You could say the brighter, for me, and this shot here is a little bit too much on contrast. And again, I haven't done anything to the images. I've just downloaded them from a free stock image website and printed them off. I haven't done any alterations or anything like that. Now, it was the smooth cotton that actually surprised me, to be honest. What the smooth cotton has done is it's actually held the detail absolutely fantastically. I'm not sure if it's changed the emotion in the landscape. I don't know, possibly with this particular image, it's changed it dramatically. Now for me, it's this one here that absolutely wins out. I really like the matte brighter feel to it. It's held some lovely detail, nice and crisp. However, it's just brought everything down very, very slightly. So all we've done is use the paper as an editing tool. So some images are going to work better than others. I think the paper has balanced the image a little bit more, and it has made it, again, perhaps the Platinum Brighter, could we describe it as a little bit more confrontational, and maybe it's an image you would look at and go, oh, that's nice. And maybe we're not going to be spending as much time on this picture if we see it because of that, possibly. Everyone's going to be different, like I said at the start. Whereas on the matte brighter here, we've got all the lovely detail still preserved because of that brighter content and things, which matte brighter is absolutely fantastic. However, it has just softened the blacks very, very slightly. It looks a little bit more inviting. That's probably a better word to use. So you can then actually start to look at it. It's a little softer on the eyes. It creates a response from the viewer. It certainly creates a peaceful kind of emotion in me, rather than the Platinum Brighter here, that because of that extra contrast, that extra kind of punch in the picture that the Platinum Brighter is giving, and all we've done is change the paper. We haven't messed around with any sliders. We haven't had to do any heavy editing, because I always think with editing on the computer, you kind of need an idea in your head to start with. Whereas if we're just printing on different papers, you don't have to do them big on A3+ like I've done here just for the video so you guys can see them properly. But you could do this on a little A5 and just have a look and think, actually, I really like this one, but kind of like that. And yeah, then you could possibly move sliders, get this look for some parts of the images. So you can kind of get the best of both, but it's nice to have an idea to start with. Now let me show you one last set of pictures, because I think demonstrating this and trying to explain it, for me anyway, and hopefully for you as well, is a little bit easier to see in black and white. Okay, so here's the last set here. Now again, I've got platinum baryta, so we'll put that one in the middle there. And then we have the matte baryta, got smooth cotton on the end here. And you can see already the contrast levels of both of these. We've got the platinum baryta here. Now we could say this is a little bit more confrontational, or it could describe it as empowering. There's a certain element to the picture as well. I think it was shot on film. There's quite a bit of grain going on here. So there's already emotion in there. Apologies, I always get nervous describing pictures of women or female models in pictures and things like that. So it does, there is a certain element of that defiance, empowerment and things going on in this picture, which is fantastic. If that is what you're going for, those could be keywords in your competition or what the client wants. Now with the matte baryta here, again, it's just softened it very slightly. I think the model here looks a little bit cold in the water, to be honest. It's kind of changed that emotion to me, where in this one, like I said, empowered, defiant, and kind of confident or whatever. But in this one here, as I move it across, it's almost like I can see the shivering in her lips there. It's absolutely freezing or something going on. So that's just me though. It's that's what I personally kind of get from this on the matte baryta. Whereas on the smooth cotton, it has dulled the contrast down a little bit. It becomes a little bit more mid-tony. And all we've done again is just change the paper. We haven't done anything else. This one really does, for me, give an impression of a dreamlike picture. And it could invoke kind of feelings of possibly vulnerability, that different type of tone in here, where the model looks quite cold in this one, especially when I move it about and you can see the paper moving a little bit. In this case, it depends on what you would like as the final output. If you want something quite strong, then platinum baryta, which I'm kind of drawn to a little bit. For me, the matte baryta isn't enough of a change, really. Apart from it does change the image and make her look like she's absolutely freezing in that water. But for me, the biggest change happens between the platinum baryta and also the smooth cotton here. Because of the nature of the shot, because it's shot on film and things like that, quite a fast film by the look of the grain in here, then I'd almost be drawn towards either the platinum baryta or the kind of the smooth cotton. Be interesting to know actually in the comments if you guys can see this. But we're really interested to know what you feel about these and if that is the right words I'm using, really. Because again, it's very much a personal choice. I think most people will probably pick the platinum baryta though in this case. When the smooth cotton comes out of your printer, you're kind of thinking, well, where's all my contrast gone? It looks amazing on screen. That's what I want, that defiant, kind of confident, strong look. Whereas this one, it kind of takes that away very slightly and almost gives this dreamlike feel to the picture. I hope that's been useful. A bit of an arty kind of emotional kind of video this week, but hopefully it's shown you how different papers can act as an editing tool and can change the way you look at certain pictures, and also how your audience and your viewers are going to look at certain pictures as well. Again, if you hadn't printed these pictures, you wouldn't know any of this. And everything would start to look the same, to be honest, probably with loads of contrast, nice silky blacks and things like that. But if you're looking for that dreamscape and you're struggling and fighting with all those lovely sliders in, say, Lightroom, Photoshop, then perhaps just give it a print, pick a cotton paper like the smooth cotton and give it a print, a little A5, cut your A3 sheets down or whatever you've got, or your A4, give it a little print, just see how it looks. And you might think, actually, that is how I want the pictures to look. That idea of dream state going on in the images. And it may be a starting point to actually start to move those sliders back in the software a little bit to get a little bit more of that depth back in the picture. So hopefully you're all still here. And hopefully that's been useful. Bit of a break this week from talking about printers and things like that, but I hope you've enjoyed it. So I'll end on a little bit of housekeeping as always. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and also don't forget to sign up to the Fotospeed newsletter on photospeed.com. Join us every Tuesday and Thursday on the Fotospeed YouTube channel for new videos talking about papers like I have today, but also printers, best tips for black and white, and also all the lovely products we produce here at Fotospeed. So on that note, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.